Hello to the chicos and the chicas. Today is the final recap video from the Olympiad. As you may have noticed, I skipped round 2, partly because I didn't quite get around doing the recap timing wise, but also because I decided to do instead a little bit of a commentary on the last round, because it was scheduled 4 hours earlier than all other rounds, and so it lined up nicely with my Sunday night. Anyway, right into this. No spoilers anymore. I guess everyone knows what's what. And my predictions have come to realization, or have become reality, I suppose it's a better way to put it. Both Indian teams won the Olympiad, the Open and the women's sections respectively. And not only that, but they did it in a particularly impressive fashion, especially the men's team, where Gukesh and Erigaisi's performance and just the general vibe of their level was absolutely off the charts. It's just absolutely insane. That being said, Deshmukh 7.5 out of 9 was also incredible. Actually, no, that was, I think, Vantika. I need to cheat a little bit here, folks. Let me just switch on to a proper cut so that you can see what I see. Somewhat you can see. So, sorry, Divya was 9.5 out of 11, of course, because she played almost every single. In fact, not almost. She played every single game, which, by the way, in itself is a gargantuan effort in such a tiring tournament like an Olympiad, to play through without a single rest day. That lady, guys, she has got the mental fortitude of, yeah, I don't even know what to say there, and she is a fighter and some. But once again, Agrava Avantika with the 7.5 out of 9 was also quite high up there. But now that I'm on the list of players and performances, Gukesh, 9 out of 10 with a performance rating of 3056, and Erigaisi 10 out of 11, 2968 performance, and his live rating puts him on number 3 in the world ranking. We are, ladies and gentlemen, entering a new era of chess, and that is going to be dominated by Indian players, definitely on the men's scene. And it's looking very, very competitive amongst the ladies. Once again, in particular, Deshmukh is coming up like mad. And yeah, I think that lady is destined to go to very, very far and do great things in chess. So, a brief review of the games. It's very different to provide a recap when you haven't watched through the games versus when you actually watched them live for hours, followed the ups and downs, checked out various ideas and so on. I feel like I'm so much more insightful about this particular round than any other when I do the review. But also I want to cover a lot in terms of how many games, so I'm going to cherry pick only a few critical moments. But boy, did I have a jolly good time watching the games as they developed. So, Fedoseev, Gukesh on top board. Fedoseev was obviously on a bit of a high, coming from a victory against Magnus. Unfortunately, he followed it up with the London, and so Gukesh won. There's a little bit more to that, but that's the essence of the story. So, yeah, this is a trendy line, and I don't like it at all for white, but that's my personal take. I don't really like too many things that are associated with the London. A little personal touch is that here in my course, or against a very similar move order, I recommend take, queen b6, bishop b5, a6, takes, which is quite similar, at least in terms of structure, to what happened in the game. Except that Gukesh had the bishop pair because he didn't insert the capture on d7, f3 rather, excuse me. So what he did instead was that he played knight d7 to preempt the pin and also to preempt knight e5s. And this move does allow black to keep the bishop as well. As you can see, the structure, once again, is essentially identical. The only difference between the game and the line that I recommend in my d4, d5 course is the absence of these two pieces. Either way, I like black more because I find this position easier to play. And Gukesh has basically just run a masterclass from here on out about how to restrict opponents' play and also just build up an advantage and then turn it into a decisive edge. So plays f6, that's already killing the knight and to some degree the bishop too. Knight b3 played. At this point, Gukesh could have chosen this very cute idea of knight b6, hitting c4, and if takes, then c4. A very, very nice in-between move, and then cd5, and black is already clearly ahead because this advanced c4 pawn secures a sizable space advantage to black. But Gukesh's choice with a5 also made a lot of sense. Thank you very much, but no thank you as far as trading the bishop is concerned. That being said, the engine actually prefers the trade, followed by another trade, which compromises the pawn structure no matter how white reacts. So this is also looking absolutely golden. But bishop f5 was fine, and that was a very human move. Knight d2, h5. The engine here, I think, preferred g5 first. So that was a slight inaccuracy, and this is where Gukesh strikes with this incredibly clever response of e5. So instead of retaking on c5, allowing the white knight to centralize, attack the bishop, attack the pawn, he goes, nah. Goodbye bishop, goodbye knight. And essentially he claims to be up 2 pieces. So the fact that now temporarily we are down a pawn is no problems. Now it takes a fair bit of guts to allow a pass pawn run all the way to the 6th, supported by stacked rocks, and you still go like, yeah, nah, doesn't do the thing to me. It's just like, good luck, Chuck. And indeed, by now we are about -1.5. And Gukesh from here on just builds. When I was doing the commentary on this game, what I highlighted to my audience was the fact that it may look like Gukesh is down a pawn, but the reality is that he's actually up 3 pieces. Because none of these guys do anything at all. These two, in fact, will not be able to do anything for a very long time to come. And even the reactivation of the d2 knight appears to be very problematic. This is precisely the reason why, by the way, the engines here would like to change the trend of the game by a very drastic measure, which is a piece sack on e5 to at least liberate the knight and gobble up a few extra pawns. Black is winning here too, by the way. 91, rook b5, and yeah, just Fedosey collapsed under the pressure, and after d4 take came this very cute idea, rook e8, and it turns out that the king has no good way out of the discovery, and really the rest is just some really ugly mopping up. This was a very good time to call it a day, but Fedosey have decided to hang on for another 10-12 moves. I will spare you from that. A absolutely super impressive showing from Gukesh. And by the way, with this, I do think that he has removed the London from the menu for white from his match against Ding. Or at least this variation, I very much doubt that Ding is going to attempt if he were to play the London with white. But I think that Gukesh here not only won a game of chess, but made an incredibly strong statement that if he were to be beaten with white, the London ain't gonna cut it. It's as simple as that. Anyway, on to next. And next is, I'm just botching the party right there. Is going to be the Pragnananda game. I only want to highlight 2 things about this game, so I'm going to skip through most of the opening, stock standard IQP structure. Pragnananda plays with a fair bit of gusto, and yeah, he has a very pleasant position here. And we are reaching the critical position here after f5, where I actually thought that he would play bishop f4. Which is exactly what he did. But when I analyzed this with the machine was recommending bishop c2. And so I shut the engine down and I said to my audience on stream, guys, what do you reckon we can do after f4? And actually we figured it out together. And I don't know if Prague saw this, but chose to not to go for it for whatever reason. But this is one of the most beautiful lines that I have come across throughout the whole entire Olympiad. Check this out. f4, queen d3. We all saw this idea, right? So there is no question about this. However, I wasn't sure if we had a mate here. It's very easy to lose faith in a position like this because the king is about to run away. Queen g6 check is obviously a perpetual check, but that's about it. So you have to try bishop g6. But after king f6, it's make or break, because if there is no mate, our queen is trapped. And then it turns out that white just comes on time with fe3, rook h8, rook f1, rook takes, and checkmate. Absolute bananas. What an incredible line. And black gets checkmated. I think we did try another avenue here after king f6 fe. What was it though? We analyzed it yesterday on stream. I think I tried e5 to try to create an... Yeah, that was it. An escape route for the king via e6. But the engine jumped on it very, very quickly with knight g5. What else? hg. And here comes the joyride. Takes, king g5 obviously gets mated very, very quickly. So I need to run for the hills. And here comes a beautiful mate. Queen h3 check. King d5. e4. King c4. Queen b3. King d4. Rook check. King here. Rook check. King here. And mate. There was an error classifying a move. Let me help you out. Checkmate. Thank you. Yeah. So this would have been a heck of a winner by Prague. And in fact, instead he went bishop f4. And the game fizzled out into this endgame where unfortunately he had to trade d4 for e6, which meant a very, very symmetrical endgame with the tiniest of edges to white. So I thought, fair enough. Okie dokie. Oh, sorry, my camera froze up there for a second. I really freaked out. I said, okay, fair enough. This is going to be a draw. Prague tried. He missed bishop c2. Demchenko deserves a draw. And then Prague just kept on playing. And just playing and playing and playing and asking questions, posing problems, and just moving pieces. Just no draw, thank you. At this point, that the engine actually favors black by the tiniest margins, 0.05. But, you know, and look what happens. Bishop e8, king g3. At least he has imbalance. And as soon as he has imbalance, he's in his element. Because now he has 2-on-1 here and there is 2-on-1 here. So there's something to play for. And play for something he does. f4, king f6. He penetrates with the rook. I will accelerate this bit a little bit. And here we reach the critical part of the game. Black has 4 king moves. 1, 2, 3, 4. Of which at least 2 is an easy draw. 1 is okay. And 1 is losing outright. As luck would have it, Demchenko played the only move that loses outright. I'll show you the incredible idea. It's absolutely marvelous. So the concept of holding the draw, perhaps that's the better way to demonstrate this idea, is that if they play king d6, we need to play bishop e6. And now white wants to play rook h7 and win this pawn. And one of the best remedy against that is simply to come here, rook h7, h5. These two get traded off. And yeah, in fact, white is in trouble here a little bit now because it's quite difficult to hold a pawn. So that is the drawing idea. So what's so bad about king f8? What's so bad about king f8 is that now, after rook e4, rook h7, h5 loses on the spot because the king gets cornered. And there is no way to stop checkmate on h8. Remember my latest video about the nuances that decide chess games on 26-2700 level? Case in point. You have 2 king moves or 4, whichever number you want to run with, and you must understand the difference between them, because otherwise, you know, you're not going to be able to figure out the difference, and you will inevitably pick the wrong one. And that is exactly what happened here. So Demchenko had to give up the pawn on h6, and after that, the victory is pretty elementary with the 2 connected passes. Something is very, very amiss here with .com today. Anyway, on to Erigaisi. Now, this game is another story and a half. What I said to my audience during the game is that it's very fascinating to my mind to observe the mind of a super GM. Because in order to play for a win with black, you need to take a degree of risk. Right? You cannot play the Ruy Lopez Berlin because that's going to be a draw. Right? So what you need to do is to play an opening that is bordering the sus. Yeah? But allows you to put all 3 results on the table. And obviously, the ultimate go-to for most super GMs for this reason is one of the Sicilians. Because the Sicilian doesn't compromise the outcome too heavily. Like, they really need to play a perfect game to beat you. And if they slip just once, the Sicilian is the ultimate opening where you can immediately grab the initiative, go after them. And then I said to my audience that the greater the gap between the 2 players, usually the greater the risk the higher rated player is willing to take in order to invite all 3 results into the game rather than just accepting that it's going to be a draw. And Erigaisi really took it to the next level, because with this candy line, he really did cross every single line there was that, you know, would have kept him on the draw or win side of the equation. And with this, he definitely invited a potential loss as well, especially since after take he did not insert this vitally important check on b4, which forces knight d2, and then bishop h6 now highlights some issues with the bishop. And yeah, here we go into this endgame where we are facing the 2 bishops, but this appears to be playable. Obviously, that was meant to be bishop d2. Maybe there is a better way to play it for black here. Yeah, of course, I can take d4. I was talking rubbish. And then there is some comp. In fact, black is better here. It's bishop d3. What's the difference? That now we have knight f3 winning the bishop. Right, so now I have to take. Okay, now I got it together. And now after bishop d2, we have a very funny scenario. 2 bishops versus 2 knights, but black has a pawn for it. That is the type of imbalance that Erigaisi would be very happy to invite against low-rated players. But against 2700, it wouldn't pay off. But he actually played here, instead of queen b4 check, he went with bishop g7. And after castles, had Subel play a5, played a5, queen d6 and g3, he would have been, as in Arjun, would have been under tremendous pressure. Like here, you feel the wrath of the 2 bishops, superior central control. It's just everything is about white. And in strong contrast to the game, black has been denied both pawn breaks. This would be a nightmare to play with black. No plan, no pawn breaks, no 2 bishops, nothing. Like the ultimate scenario where you really are playing for 2 results, which is that you either lose or you hold with some miracle. But that's it. There's no winning on the cards anymore. But it turns out that his risk-taking paid off, because after castles, unfortunately, Subal started playing some very timid chess. c3 was played. After c5, he played a5, which also wasn't great. And after dc, queen d4 and rook c8, black is already on the verge of equality. And a few more unfortunate moves, and we find ourselves with an isolated queen pawn in an endgame. And really, the rest is just an incredibly powerful demonstration of how to play against an IQP, blockade it, trade pieces, ultimately pile up on the pawn, and attack it with everything you own. That simple. Trade is forced, and now every single black piece is targeting it, and so the white army is incredibly passive. On top of that, this is hanging too. And hereabouts, the Slovenian GM decided to give up the d4 pawn for the b7 pawn, but unfortunately it cost him the f4 one as well, and went out in the ending without any resistance whatsoever. And so India won this match 3.5 against Slovenia, and just, demonstrated to the world that they are now the greatest chess nation, and by a significant margin. Now, as for the ladies, mentioned already Vantika Agrawal to you. Her game was a heck of a ride. She got into quite a bit of discomfort in this Maróczy bind structure. She was shuffling around, shifting pieces from to and fro. Clearly, she didn't quite find a way to equalize. Somehow, both b5 and d5 breaks were under white's control at all times. And as a result of that, she ate into her time really, really big time. And in fact, about here, had the white played queen h6, there would have been some awkward questions to be asked for black, who is on 2 minutes at this point. But 92 was played, and now things are becoming a little bit clumsy on white side. Actually, this was the critical moment when queen h6 would have been an absolute banger, because now the rook is also quite a bit sidelined. But instead, queen g3 was played, and just like as it tends to happen in chess, one mistake is followed by another, and catastrophe struck when 2 mistakes were followed by a blunder, and all of a sudden the queen got trapped. Absolutely unbelievable story. If rook g3, king h6, and see you queen. There is a twist still though. After queen g3, g5, queen g3 was played, and of course 94 does win here a lot of material, but believe it or not, in this position h4 is a stronger move than knight e4. And at first I didn't quite get why, but then I realized the extremely cunning concept behind h4. If queen h2, we have got queen takes c4. Wow! And good luck, Chuck, holding checkmate. Absolutely beautiful. If rook d1, queen d4. And of course, if they take the queen, back rank Matutsky. Sensational stuff. And I left the hero of the ladies team for last, who is none other, of course, than Divya Deshmukh, who played a very lackluster Botvinnik English and got absolutely nothing out of the opening. Absolute nada. In fact, at some points, I even wasn't sure if she wasn't worse, at least a little bit. Now, after this trade on d4, I think she's looking okay. I didn't like this idea. Maybe just castles or a4 even. But certainly leaving the tension on was the way to go from black's perspective. Because, of course, this capture followed by knight, knight, and knight d4 or dc, pressuring the backward pawn, either or, black is definitely ahead. Knight d4 I felt was a bit rushed, bishop d4 rather, because now the whole has been plugged in and the bishop has potential after f4 to become a powerful piece. And sure enough, there is a fair bit of toing and throwing here too. Once again, nothing is really going on. And this is definitely a quality in Deshmukh's game, by the way, that is going to ensure that she's going to get her GM title very soon. And that is that she has got this uncanny ability to squeeze water out of a rock. Like, she just plays on, and somehow she always finds something quite clever. That being said, here she missed a c5 opportunity that would have been quite powerful with hitting b7. Not sure if she saw it or she missed it, but that was on the cards. But another opportunity is about to arise, and that she certainly will not miss, and that is an e5 break. And that, folks, was the first step toward, an Olympic gold medal and a gold medal on her respective board too. Queen f3, and now with the dropping of the b7 pawn, black's position is going to collapse, especially since now the knight has nowhere good to go. Knight f6, fe5 is just catastrophic. So black correctly choosing to sack the knight and trying to see counterplay with the 2 pawns. But Divya just went like, yeah, not good enough. I'm going to dismantle those pawns. And dismantle she did. And at this point, the opponent gave up. Of course, after rook e1, we have got a back rank mate. But even without the back rank mate, we would just simply play rook d1, walk the king across, and ultimately the pawn. Actually, we don't really need to walk across. We can just go here and take. So, yeah. With this, ladies and gentlemen, the 45th Chess Olympiad has been concluded. I think the vibe from the players that I got, and I have read some reviews and blog posts and whatnot from various players, the organization was more or less on point. One final word about my beloved home country, Hungary. We have had the most rotten luck imaginable, in particular the men's team. They ended up being 11th after playing top 3 boards throughout the event. And a very unfortunate last 2 rounds just meant that, they got dropped down a lot on the ranking. And that was very unfortunate. As did the ladies. Their journey was a little bit more topsy-turvy, but I expected a little bit higher ranking in the end. But the last round loss to Spain was also very costly there. A very rough tournament to deal with because individually there were some stellar performances. Gledura on reserve board actually scored a silver medal for the men, so there is that. But that is chess. That is the Chess Olympiad. You have to basically perform on the very top of your game from round 1 to round 11, and that's what the Indian teams have done. Kudos to them. Massive shout out to both teams and all the players for a spectacular victory. And with that, once again, the Olympiad is over, and now all eyes are traveling from Europe to Singapore, where in about 2 months the World Championship title will be contested by Gukesh against Ding Liren. I look forward to report about that one too. I actually will be there for the better part of the tournament, so I'm super excited. But of course, in the meantime, I'm going to pump out videos here on YouTube, so please make sure that you stay tuned. Please don't forget to chuck a comment down below, press the like button, subscribe if you haven't done so, and I will see you soon. Again,